All right, team, do you have all your members present?
Give me 1 second to verify. Yes, it looks like we do.
Okay, very good. Let's see, Ed, why don't you start us off here, sir? Ed, do you have a question for the team? I think he's frozen right now. Okay, so I guess I will ask mine. You know, I really liked your payload with the inflatable habitat. But the first question that came to mind is, does that remain attached to the to a piece of the rocket in some way or something like that? You know, because the first question I thought of is you blow something up and you know, put it out in the wind here, and then it promptly blows away. So you know, how does it, you know, how do you keep it from blowing away?
I can answer that. So the payload is ejected from the capsule that is inside the rocket tube with a CO2 charge, and it's pushed out, and the base of the whole structure itself is kind of its weight. It houses the electronics, the pumps, the batteries, and so the whole structure is on that object to prevent it from blowing away, as well as keep it face up. So it's a ball, so it would hopefully roll to the weighted side and stay up for being a structure.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Yeah, because you know, if you've been out here before, you know the wind is a constant. Okay, Joe, do you have a question?
I don't remember. At what altitude do you eject the payload?
The payload comes out with the main parachute at 1,500 feet.
1,500. Okay. So here's a question I've had with several payloads: is why put a rocket to deploy a payload at 1,500? That's a lot more rocket and motor than you need for your experiment.
I didn't quite hear you the full way. Why eject at 1,500 feet?
Why eject at 1,500 feet makes sense to me. It's why go to 30,000 in order to eject at 1,500.
The reason we ejected at 1,500 is because the stacking of the parachute and the order of things that come out. We initially wanted to do 30,000, but just the order of operations, you put the drogue and then the full main parachute comes out at 15, it complicates things up there, and that's what we just decided at 15. The order made sense to effectively eject the payload itself.
If I can interrupt real quick. One of our primary goals was the 30,000 feet. That's something our school gives us as well. So our target goal was the 30,000 feet, and then also we wanted a unique payload. And our deployability came out after we had already figured out our stability with the parachutes and with a payload of a similar weight that was non-deployable, because we did all of our open rocket simulations over the summer when we decided what length our airframes were going to be, and we already had the parachutes accounted for, and we did the math and ran some simulations, and we found we could deploy at 1,500 feet just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I got.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I have. Don't get me started on Spark-like. I have a crappy provider. It's how they can screw it up, I don't know. On your ejection charges, the redundant charges that you have are 50% larger than the initial ejection charges. Why?
to guarantee that the shear pins will definitely break correctly and that we will launch our parachute. That's what we came out with ejection testing, like that value guaranteed that our shear pins would fully dismantle and our
Well-
parachutes would deploy correctly.
Okay, because isn't that what the initial charge is supposed to do, is to be able to break the shear pins the first time?
Yes.
Okay. And how does the payload know when it has hit the ground to then deploy the structure?
So the payload has 2 limit switches on within the guide rails, and so it launches out at 1500 feet, and then it has a timer for a second to launch its main parachute with a lid, and then it is just a timer from there, 10 minutes until it hits the ground, and after a 10-minute timer, it will go through the sequence of ejecting itself and inflating itself.
Okay. Oh, just so you're aware, I have seen
Does the
rockets deploy chutes and then actually go up depending on wind drafts. So that was if it's on a timer, it might still be in the air depending on the wind.
Um,
ahead.
just to follow up on Ed's question, do you, I didn't see you say it one way or the other, but does the payload have its own GPS tracker?
The payload does have a telemega inside of it for GPS tracking.
okay.
It also has 2 95 decibel speakers, so that as it's falling through the air, it's signaling that it's falling, as well as once it's hit the ground, so you can find it if the GPS doesn't work, to hear the audible noise of finding it.
Okay, yeah, I caught the speakers, but didn't catch the telemega. Okay, very good. Let me just ask another quick question. So you simmed the thing to basically 35,400 feet, which is pretty good overshoot. So how are you planning to fix that and get more competitive?
What do you mean by fix
Okay.
that? Do you mean go higher?
Well, I mean, you're exceeding your altitude by 5,400 feet. So you know that's not going to be competitive at all. So how are you planning to get closer to the target of 30,000 feet?
But 35,000 was definitely an overshoot, and we pinned that down to Open Rocket and our simulations on there. When we did launch in July, we got closer to 29,000 feet. That's what we actually launched at and our altitude that we hit. So we're gonna be going back to the simulation state closer to the 30,000 target.
Yeah, well, because one of the things that I saw is that, okay, you did a good job of taking the data from your previous flight and trying to make an adjustment by basically increasing the chamber pressure by 50 psi in your rocket motor, which is good, but that just seemed like kind of an arbitrary choice, and now you're even farther away from the target than you were before. So why did you pick 50 psi, and why didn't you adjust that back down when you saw that you were actually making the problem worse by overshooting 4 times as much as you undershot?
I think that was kind of based off of how much of a pressure difference there was between the real testing versus what occurred during the flight from the previous rocket. And so we kind of made it a little bit arbitrary, but it was based because the previous team had launched for 700 psi, but they only reached 650, and so that was kind of our little adjustment. And it's kind of different environment as well, so we kind of figured there'd be a wildly different overall performance of the motor.
Okay. Joe, over to you.
Moment.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I'm just sort of thinking about the previous answer on the simulated versus actual flight. Have you? Okay, so your simulated altitude was 35,000 feet, and your actual flight was 29,000. How could you adjust the simulation parameters to better reflect the actual test flight? Or did I misunderstand you before?
No, that wasn't a misunderstanding. I think with our original simulations, we weren't accounting for wind speed correctly, and then it was also a different location where we launched versus the weather we were mimicking for Spaceport, because we originally launched here in Oregon, where we're located. And I don't think we accounted for that. We were accounting for previous weather in Spaceport rather than weather in Oregon and what we'd experience here. So those were changes we were going to make, but the competition is now, and we had to turn in the simulations we had.
Yeah, I don't think the difference in atmospheric conditions would cause that great a discrepancy. Something that's done pretty routinely is to adjust the surface roughness texture to adjust the drag of the rocket, and then you can get it to more accurately reflect your test flight. Sort of a calibration run, as it were.
Right.
Yeah, I just follow up on that as an observation. We've had some teams that have been very successful in the past by doing exactly what Joe described. Basically, each flight you adjust your the coefficient of drag, either using the roughness texture or something like that, to better match your actual flight results, and that way you can really get it dialed in. And, we had a team get within, as I recall, 5 feet using exactly that methodology. So it's something to think about.
Pass it on to next year.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the feedback and the questions and for your time today.
And thank you for your time.
Okay, well, our time is up. Okay, thank you very much. Y'all are released, and on to our next goal, which I believe is 76 Rutgers.